All right, let's welcome in Todd Meleney, VP of Marketing for Noble. Todd, thanks so much for joining me today. How are you doing?
Good, man. Excited to be here.
Well, obviously, big news last week or so. Noble's announced as the title sponsor for the CrossFit Games, a massive partnership. Just right off the bat, what were some initial reactions for you and finally getting to hear that announced and see Noble as the big partner of the CrossFit Games going forward?
Thrilled. We're proud. We're excited. We are CrossFitters, and we've been in this community for a long time. And it's certainly been a roller coaster over the last couple of years in that community. And for us to have our brand, which is something, we protect diligently to be the title sponsor, is something we're fired up about. But, also a feeling of, eagerness to just get after it because there's a lot of work we have to do.
And there definitely is a lot of work to be done, but I think I want to start first by giving listeners who may not be familiar with the early stages of the brand, kind of the origin story, I guess, if you will, since we're all big comic book nerds here on the show, of Noble and how it came to be.
Sure. Noble was launched in January of 2015. Marcus Wilson, Michael Schaefer are the two co-founders, and they had worked together at Reebok in the 2000s and became close friends. Marcus had left and gone on to do some other things, and ultimately had kept in touch with Michael, and the two of them really had kind of wanted to go off on their own and kind of test some things entrepreneurially. Ultimately Michael left Reebok in 2012 to join Marcus to start their own thing. And they didn't have clear plans exactly what it would be, but they knew that they loved building brands and they loved creating product and marketing and content. And, that's kind of how it started. So I joined Marcus and Michael in early 2013, and we actually had another brand that we started before Noble, which was a cold water surfing brand.
Oh,
And
okay.
so I had been in the action sports industry. I had started a couple of my own companies previously in that space. And we know when they were getting this first brand off the ground, we connected on it and started working together quickly. The focus was product and content, and social media driven and digitally native. And through that, and through the work we were doing with that brand, we started getting hit up from companies that were looking for help. And that led us to start a marketing and design agency, which was 2013 and through 2015, where we helped other clients with marketing and design projects. So Michael, who was the global creative director at Reebok previously, and with some other of the larger brands in that space, owns the world of product for Noble, and was doing so, from a resource perspective to some of our clients. Marcus, who is head of strategy, was, doing a lot of strategic work. And my role was really in the digital marketing side as kind of an outsourced marketing manager for a variety of clients. And that's how we got started. That's what, helped fund the early POs of Noble, in addition to Marcus and Michael, who were able to kind of help fund it themselves as well. It kept the lights on, and it also allowed us, it was just the three of us, right? We were working from our homes. I was in my buddy's apartment, and they were at their homes, and we were working out of the basements and the garages and just hustling. We came online with Noble in January of 2015. We launched at the East Coast Championship, for those of you who remember that. And we were off to the races. We had no product. We had prototypes, and we had a brand that we were excited about. And we very quickly became the underdog alternative brand in CrossFit to Reebok and also to Nike, who was coming into the space that same month as they launched Nike training. And that's how we got going.
And it's interesting to hear you say that, obviously you guys were working in marketing and design spaces before with your own company. And I think for a lot of people, that is kind of like a light bulb moment. Like that makes sense, because one of the things that does stand out is the marketing, the design, and kind of what feels like a very purposeful effort on both those arenas from Noble that kind of sets them apart. So the company gets going. Like you said, you didn't have really any product, but you're trying to make headway in this vastly growing marketplace. What were some of the earliest challenges that you guys had as a company? And then from there, I guess, what kind of was the company ethos that was forged through that as you went along and kind of got your footing?
Yeah, so I mean, everything was a challenge, right? We were starting from scratch, and we were going into a space that is owned by billion-dollar Goliaths that have decades worth of kind of institutional knowledge and mature supply chains and all of those things. But it was a different time when we launched. So we were digital. We were able to communicate with the consumer directly using social media, um, and we started by going out into the community. So we were at events, like the Cascade Classic or the Crush Games or the Heart of America, with small 10 by 10 booths. And it was, Marcus, Michael, and I, and then, Jed and some of the earlier team members just, having to do it, and having to be able to talk to customers and explain what Noble means. And, Noble, the name came from, the feeling that when you think of athletic footwear, which is the first products that we came out with, the way those products are designed and celebrated is that the technology in your sole or in the upper is going to make you run faster, jump higher, be stronger, or be some better version of you. And we thought that was complete BS. And that ultimately none of those things are going to work if you're not willing to stop making excuses and put in the work. And that's what we had to do to get the whole thing started, and it meant long days of flying cross country and building the booth ourselves and then talking to customers all day long and all weekend and then breaking it down and flying to the next one. And, that was it. We had to live it and breathe it. And the same people that were doing those things were replying to customer service. And then a couple of months later, once we started actually having inventory, we had to get our first office, which was just a big garage. And we set up a gym in the garage, and we were either shipping shoes or working on the website, which we created and coded ourselves to get started, or we were replying to customers. And, it created a level of ownership for everybody that was in those, war rooms in the early years, that you had to live up to it. You had to do your job and put in the work because there was no one else to do it there for you. And we created the Noble Code of Conduct in those early years, and one of those, points is to use good judgment and treat the customer how you would want to be treated. And, that's what we've tried to do since then.
Hearing you say that, like just going through some of the early stages and things like that of development, it sounds a lot like a CrossFit affiliate, like a lot of people wearing a lot of different hats, having to put in the long hours and the work yourself. Like a lot of it's not glamorous. A lot of it I kind of liken back to being an affiliate owner and then having to, go and clean the bathroom and do all that, the elbow grease type stuff that not everyone hears about. They just see the end result at the end. And I think that resonates a lot with people. But I will say, I don't know about the whole run faster, jump higher thing, because I'm a product of like the movie The Sandlot, and PF Flyers were like my favorite thing. So
there are exceptions. I'll give you that.
I'm still holding that hope. But and so the company gets going. What would you say early on was a big turning point for you guys, as far as not necessarily saying that we've made it, but maybe that you're starting to see the fruits of the labor pay off and you feel some sense of establishment in the community and in the marketplace?
Sure. So, I mean, we started having some support really quickly, like, just even thinking to the 2015 regional where we had very few product, it was still mostly samples, but we had sent them out to some of our athletes at different affiliates. And somehow we were fortunate enough that one of those pairs ended up on the feet of Brooke Wells a week before the 2015 regional. And she showed up and won that regional. I remember getting the text. It was like, Brooke Wells is wearing your shoes. And I was like, who is Brooke Wells? And nobody knew that at the time either. I think Noble had, 1,000 followers. Maybe she had 5. And you look at kind of the track that, both of us have been on collectively since then, there's a lot of parallels there.
Mm.
And, that was one of the kind of early wins for us, in addition to some of our OG athletes who have, been incredibly supportive. But then as you fast forward kind of to the end of that year, that first moment we're like, okay, maybe we're onto something here, was Black Friday of 2015. So that year, we literally just had some leftover black material from a different pair of shoes that we had made. And we're like, let's make this shoe in all black and launch it on Black Friday. And we didn't think that much of it. We were still like, tiny and just kind of figuring things out. But we were building a little bit of repetition with how we launched products. And it wasn't like, it was strategic in the sense that like we like to launch the product at midnight because there was limited inventory, and it kind of built a little bit of rhythm and mystique to it. And the people that really wanted it are going to stay up. So that's kind of a cool thing. Let's lean into that. So let's launch it at midnight on Black Friday with the all black shoe. And, at 11:58, there were more people on the website than there were shoes manufactured. And it was like, huh, we're starting to feel a little bit of a buzz. And we tried to carry that forward. And thereafter, we had a conversation, which was like, should we just bring the shoe back and sell it year round? Or should we wait until next Black Friday and try to just build a little bit more mystique around that? And we decided to wait, which was a very difficult decision for us, because we probably could have sold a ton of those shoes in the year in between. But we kept that rhythm through 16 and then even into 17. So 2017, we had that same product launch approach going into Black Friday. Our store is on Shopify, which is an e-commerce platform, which is a lot of direct-to-consumer brands are built on. And it was Black Friday 2017. We made as many pairs as we could possibly afford to make. And keep in mind, we're bootstrapped. So we never had funding. We didn't take any funding in these early years. It was all based on profitability. We had to manage the business in a way that allowed us to grow. So that year in 2017, we made as many as we could afford to make. And keep in mind, that meant like making things uncomfortable with kind of investing in that product. But Black Friday 2017, at 12:01, the velocity was just otherworldly for us. And I remember our Shopify account rep reaching out saying, you guys are the #1 Shopify store in the world right now. And At that time, there was 500,000 Shopify stores. There's several million now. But it was those were some of the early years where it was kind of a head scratching, okay, I think we may need a bigger boat moment. Let's buckle down and not mess this up.
Excellent Jaws reference, by the way. Big movie buff. And it's interesting hearing you say that, because I think back to kind of the early years in the development of the retail space, especially with brands like Supreme and that kind of what I call a drop economy, where, the easy decision would be to just sell everything, make it available right away. But you started to see brands really harness the power of special releases, creating mystique, and tapping into, the passion of their fans and supporters in those moments, which I don't know, it kind of creates this, I don't want to say secret club, but there's like this moment, this like, I don't know if you call it dopamine hit or whatever, where you're just like, yeah, I got that drop. It's super cool. And you feel something beyond just the normal, I guess, retail experience, which I think is important. Did that change your approach at all? Were you trying to cultivate that at some point? Because I think after a while, like you said, there's that constant urge where I just want to make it available to everyone.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. So in the early years, when we were building the identity of like, hey, this is a brand for people, that want maybe something different, that it's an alternative kind of option. And when we were so limited by what we could produce, from a capacity issue, it kind of happened organically. And then as it was happening organically, there are times where we would want to lean into a little bit more. But from a strategic perspective, like the most powerful form of marketing in our view is word of mouth, and giving people something to talk about and have a story to share about why they love the product that they wear. And I think that there started to be a little bit of a culture building around that, which was, as there was a noble community, they were able to say like, look, I love this particular colorway or style because of the story that was told around it with, a floral shop or, a particular design or whatever it may
A
be.
fake
And
coffee shop.
you pay attention, don't you?
Yeah.
No, so we did have some fun with that, but over time, like we're trying to we're not trying to get away from it, but we've invested heavily in evergreen SKUs. So when you think about when we started identifying what are our core evergreen colors, it's navy, it's black, it's white, it's gray, and the idea is that those footwear items should never be out of stock. And we will introduce fun stories periodically, and lean into the product launch on a regular basis, but not at the expense. The intent at this point is not at the expense of people being unable to get the product. If that's happening right now, it's because we're not scaling as quickly as we would like to be. But of course, we're not perfect in that way.
And you touched on a great point there, and it kind of leads me to the next subject, scaling accordingly for the community. And this is where we can kind of touch on, I think, a little bit of the vision for the future, because as the title sponsor now, that's like we had discussed offline, like you're the lead runner now, and that represents a much broader swath of people in the community, and the demand is going to be bigger. So what are some plans for you guys, and hopefully trying to scale accordingly and working towards from a scaling perspective and product development?
For sure. So I'll get to product development here as well, because that's a fun one for us. When we think about the community, like we've tried to put the community first in every way that we can. So, not to backtrack again, but just as kind of one example of this, which, goes back to the ECC. When we launched, we were actually supposed to be the major sponsor of the East Coast Championship with Ben Bergeron, who's been with us from the beginning. And in the last minute, Reebok came in and offered him a significant amount of money to be the title sponsor of the ECC. And he came to us and he was like, guys, I'm struggling. I don't know how to handle this because I've committed this to you. And now I have this other opportunity. How should we think about this? And Marcus talked to him about it and said, look, what's best for the community is what's going to be best for what's best for the event is what's going to be best for the community. And what's best for the community in the long run is ultimately going to be what's best for Noble. And we've tried to take that approach in every milestone that we've hit as we've grown as a company to meet the demands that are required at that stage. And the requirements that are needed, when the company is 0 to 1 million, is very different than 1 to 10, which is different than 10 to 50, which is different from 100 to 200. And in each one of those milestones, which we have experienced, we're being very thoughtful about making sure that we can live up to the expectations that we set. And, as it relates to the games, we know that there's an emphasis on us and an expectation of us to deliver for the community and the people that have supported us to get to this point. But we hope that's a much smaller percentage of the people that we can engage with and celebrate this community and this sport with going forward. And the funny thing was, we signed the contract on Friday night, and the announcement went out Monday morning. So there was not a lot of time to kind of process and plan thoroughly. We had obviously a little bit of a tip that we knew this. The team knew we were working on this, so we were able to kind of get that ball rolling. But as soon as the ink dried, even before the ink dried on that contract, we were shifting all of our eggs into increasing capacity, optimizing supply chain, and doing it as quickly as we can to live up to that. We recognize it's there, and we've set kind of different milestones between now and through the first year, which first one was getting the announcement out in the open and getting some product created just so that we can represent that, hey, we are here. But we have a lot more coming, and we're working on that with the games as kind of that next key milestone, and then expanding on it throughout the back half of the year as rapidly as we can.
And I know some of it has to obviously stay secret, but is there anything you can share as far as what might be coming? I know people are always looking for a little crumb or something to chew on as far as what could be in the works as far as stuff that Noble is developing for the community and the game specifically product wise.
I don't want to give too much away yet, but we're fired up about it. And the cool thing about it for us is that we're a training brand. So we make product for athletes that are doing CrossFit or doing other, types of training. So we feel like this is our wheelhouse. Are there areas to improve and expand? No doubt. But we're doing those things now, and we're going to put out some product that we're really proud of.
And I kind of noticed, like, in the past calendar year in 2020, that, the cycling shoe comes out, a trail runner comes out. Do you feel like those little mini expansions and forays into new product that may have been in the works for a lot longer kind of prepared you for this moment to be able to kind of amplify that even more now to, the nth degree with a much broader community base?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, although we launched in CrossFit and CrossFit was our exclusive focus from 2015 to call it 2017, starting in 2018 and through now, we do have a meaningful community that is outside of CrossFit as well. And I've had, people reaching out saying, hey, I just went to my first CrossFit class, or I signed up because you guys are, are sponsoring this now, which is cool to see. But in 2018, it was 2017, 2018 as we came out with our first running shoe. We're growing that line rapidly. We work with a lot of, boutique fitness and training, different environments that are kind of parallel to CrossFit. And now we're starting to get into a little bit more sports specific. So we work with about 300 NFL players in a variety of capacities. We don't celebrate it quite, as openly as some of the things we do in CrossFit because it's newer to us. But they love our lifters. They wear the lifters, the trainers, and all of these other things, and are pumped about it too. So, we're definitely expanding beyond just the things that you've seen probably, in your local box. And as we do expand, we certainly plan to bring CrossFit with us and have CrossFit be a big part of it. Because when we think about training, CrossFit's at the top of the pyramid there and has a huge influence on the way people train for other things. And whether you're training for golf or whether you're training for tennis or whether you're an endurance runner or an Ironman, those people work hard and don't believe in excuses too. And we feel like there's a lot of common language that we can connect with them on.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I'll speak for myself and say that, like, hearing that you're working with 300 different NFL players and things like that's a surprising number. And I think that might open up a lot of eyes to people about the variety per se that Noble is already experiencing in terms of the athletes and the training environments and things like that. And kind of speaking to that expansion, Sean and I had the chance to sit down with Eric Rosa in his home and, interview him, and he was kind enough to welcome us there. And one of the things that he really hammered home, and I think it's appropriate now that we're on the doorstep of the Open, we're less than 24 hours away, is he seems really focused on the area of inclusivity. And I'm kind of curious what is in Noble's vision plan as far as expanding the inclusivity, whether it's sizing, whether it's design types, anything like that, because I know Noble has had a very focused effort so far. And obviously the community is such I call it a mosaic. It's such a broader swath of pictures and things that put together to make the whole.
Yeah, no doubt. I think you nailed it. And that's something that matters a lot to us too. And when we think about inclusivity, it's broad, and it is body type or, wherever you are on your fitness journey. It's sizing, it's pricing, it's sex or gender and race as well. And we take that stuff seriously. We are proudly a majority female-led workforce. We are proud to have a very diverse leadership team and ownership group. And it's those types of things and that level of thoughtfulness that has contributed to our success. You're never quite, in my perspective, you're never quite there. It's not like inclusivity is a destination. It's something that we're always working towards and want to be better with. And, that touches product and marketing and everything that we do. And, the way we think about it is, given all the information we have at any given time, let's do the right thing. And, that's how we plan to approach all of the different topics that we just talked about. Are there opportunities to have a wider product range? Absolutely. And I can't wait for that. And it will be there. Are there opportunities to have, expanded sizing runs or, different things like that to make sure that we're supporting, every corner of the community that supports us? Without a doubt. That's something that we take personally. And it matters, not just to the broader community, but it matters to our team, and to us and to the people that we all have in our personal lives. And, it's our job to live up to that. And I'm confident that we will and we can.
I think a lot of people will be happy to hear that. I know it just is, that's, I think in the past year, just the craziness of the past year and everything like that, not that it shouldn't have been to begin with, but I think things like that have really garnered more spotlight, rightfully so. I think we can both speak with pride about like the CrossFit community and what it is represented in all the different walks of life. So it's nice to hear that. And if I'm being honest, from the company that's going to be leading the way as well. So in terms of becoming the company that's leading the way, I'm curious how the title sponsorship came about. Sean and I were talking about this earlier, and obviously there are the things that go along with business deals like that, where sometimes you don't hear a peep about it until suddenly it's there. And so I think I speak for the average community member that is genuinely curious how Noble came to be in this position where it's now the Noble CrossFit Games.
Yeah, for sure. So, we've been going to the CrossFit Games for the last 6 or 7 years. So we're absolutely fans of the sport first and foremost. And then as we have athletes competing, we've been there for the business as well. Over time, we've developed relationships with members of the community, members of CrossFit, and, kind of had, one of the more front row seats to see how the business has evolved, over the last few years. And then, obviously we've all, been paying close attention to the last year and the changes that have happened. And now with Eric Rosa leading the charge, Marcus and Eric have actually had a relationship for the last few years, just through business circles. And Eric, being as business savvy as he is and a passionate CrossFitter, was very excited about Noble and the success that we've had over time. So the two of them were in touch. And I remember when Marcus told me that he had gotten a call from Eric that, he was interested in buying CrossFit, and Marcus's response to him was, "I've been waiting for your call." So when that all, played out, we weren't sure, yes, like we're going to be the title sponsor. It was like, well, there is some reason to be optimistic here. And, we do have a lot of affinity for the sport. And we do believe that the methodology works and that these athletes are on par with any athlete in any sport in the world. And we've had a front row seat to watch them put in the work. So, when kind of contemplating it and as exploratory conversations were taking place, we thought long and hard about the community again. And, we've thought about marketing to our community and marketing the community to people who are not a part of it yet or have not tried CrossFit yet. Yeah. And we've tried to do both of those things over time. And we felt like being in a leadership role, with the clarity that we have from our own brand identity and the experience that we have had, our hope is that we can lead in a positive way. And we're excited to do it. As conversations kind of accelerated, towards the end of the year, early this year, it became real and it became something that we were excited about. We know that there's, big shoes to fill. Reebok is $1 billion brand, and they've held this space for the last 10 years. And they've done a lot of good things for the sport as we see it. We respect so much of what they've done. But we're not here to replace Reebok. We're here to be Noble. And, we feel like, if we do the things that we know we're capable of, that will be something that the community can be galvanized by.
No doubt. And I like that phrasing a lot. We're not here to replace Reebok. We're here to be noble. And I think that's an important element of maintaining your sense of identity throughout everything, and then also allowing that to evolve hand in hand with the community. But and I'm curious because obviously it's not, and maybe I could be wrong. It's not as CrossFit's like, hey, we got a title sponsor. Noble's like, we want it, and they're like, okay, sure, good thing. Obviously there are probably some boxes that Noble has to check or had to commit to as far as becoming the title sponsor for CrossFit to want to move forward with it. So I'm just kind of curious, what were some of the things that CrossFit wanted to insist that Noble check off in order to be the title sponsor and be the leader in the community, at least from a contractual standpoint to start?
Sure. Yeah. Honestly, there was a lot of common ground there, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
They want to have great product for CrossFitters. We want that too, and, we needed to, we talked about that a lot, but having a co-branded CrossFit line is something that we thought that there would be an appetite for, and they felt the same way. So that was something that was super important to them. Obviously the sport, it's the sport. So, something that mattered to them too, was related to the prize purse. And that was something that mattered to us just as much. And, we said, if we're going to invest the type of investment that we are and we're capable of doing, we want to fund the prize purse and we want it to go up. And they agreed, so there was a lot of those types of conversations. And then around just, supporting the community. There are times where, and I understand why, but there are times where we were not allowed to be at CrossFit events. We weren't allowed to go to the CrossFit Games or to the regionals or those sorts of things. So we had to get super creative and do other things, which we were successful with. But the health of the community is not just the title sponsor or the larger companies in it. It's all of them. And, we don't want to block other footwear and apparel brands from being able to participate at the CrossFit Games. And we talked about it with CrossFit and they agreed. And we think that's an opportunity for, other companies that, didn't have the same opportunity to participate in those ways. And, a lot of different things like that. But ultimately it became something that we were all excited about. The title sponsorship was something that was important to us. And as we started exploring conversations, we did make that clear. And yeah, it worked out.
Yeah, and I will say I can attest to the creativity of you guys and finding ways around some of the things that the CrossFit gives. I do remember 2019, the Airstream that you guys set up, because we were just across the way in our little party bus. But I was always impressed by that and finding that kind of, if there's a will, there's a way type mentality that you guys had is certainly impressive. And hey, now you're at the forefront of things. And you talked about the prize purse, and obviously that is something that is very important to the development of athletes. And you guys have a very impressive stable of athletes, especially within the last 2 years, on top of having Brooke Wells and Christy Aramo and some longtime athletes like that, adding Tia, adding Katrin, and really being able to develop product and marketing and all of those things around those extremely impressive women. And I'm curious, what are some big takeaways that you guys have gotten from your work with athletes that you think you can kind of utilize here now as the title sponsor?
Yeah, for sure. And they're amazing, and we don't take that lightly. We still are excited when we see them, even on Instagram, in our product. And maybe that's the fan side of this, but it's true. Yeah, we've taken product feedback seriously from our athletes from the beginning. So like in 2015, when we had our first shoe, which is a different version than what's in the market now, we gave it to our athletes, Jared Stevens, Sam Dancer, and others. And Sam ripped the sole off the shoe, like dismantled this thing. Like if you remember Zion in the NCAA tournament last year, like that's what he did to the sole of our shoe back in 2015. And we're like, all right, something ain't right. We got to figure this out. He was doing probably a 600-pound sled push or something crazy.
I was going to say Zion and Sam have about the same power output because they're both
yeah. but we're like, hey, we've got to make some adjustments here to improve this product. And we've done that with all of our footwear over time. And a lot of it isn't celebrated publicly because there are details that maybe the consumer may not care about. Okay, you changed out the tongue, you changed out the eyelets, or the sock liner is a little bit different. And they're not marketing celebrations of a new trainer every 6 months. We do believe in product evolution and improving it, and we're working on some stuff that we're excited about. And that's a similar process to what we've gone through with Kat and with Tia and Christy and others around, hey, from a running perspective, what are the things that matter most to you? And that has been incorporated into things like our trail running and making changes as we launch. And the thing about product and entrepreneurship, if you wait till it's perfect to launch it, you will never launch.
Yeah.
So there's getting a product that we're really proud of, bringing it to market, and then learning as much as we can as quickly as we can. And that's not to say what we're coming to market with isn't great. We do believe that it is, but there's always room for improvement. And we have conversations with them regularly. And even 2 days ago, I was on the phone with Tia talking to her about some of the products that we're working on and getting a sense for, okay, with this type of product, how do you think you would use it? Like, talk to me about a workout where you think this would be applicable. And there's brainstorming that goes on kind of back and forth with that. And then it's got to be translated from a design perspective and an actional perspective, and it's also got to fit within the design DNA of Noble. And the design DNA of Noble is that if there isn't a functional purpose for it in the product, it won't exist. And I think you see that with the cleanliness of our footwear typically is it's very wearable. There are moments in time where you could see who was a CrossFitter from across the street, and it's probably not the case with us. But the other side of that is, people may wear our trainers out to dinner with a pair of jeans or something like that. So it's how do you kind of make sure that it is grounded in performance, but have kind of a more clean aesthetic and a simple aesthetic, and that's what we will take into all the feedback we get from the athletes, but then all the feedback we get internally, and obviously the brilliance of our designers take all of that into consideration.
Yeah, it's interesting. I love the statement about, if you wait till something's perfect to release, it'll never come out. Because I think that is so true, especially not just, in design or apparel, but any creative element of it. There's that kind of needle you have to thread of it being good and what you want, and understanding that if you just continue to fine tune it, you just never have anything to show for it. But I'm curious because, obviously the run and the development things isn't perfect. And I think a lot of times, especially in the CrossFit world, we learn a lot from our mistakes. You go out too fast in a workout, or you make too big of a jump, and you get humbled. And I'm curious if there are any sort of those moments that stand out to you where Noble may have been humbled or may have made a mistake, and you're like, oh man, at the time it was obviously painful or whatever it may have been, but you guys learned a lot from, because I think learning from mistakes is such an integral part of the CrossFit community.
Yeah, I mean, we're humbled all the time. This whole thing is humbling, and I will say, like, generally speaking, the things that have happened for a reason and allowed us to get to this point now, and we feel like we're exactly where we're supposed to be right now. But some of the hiccups, I would say, have been if there are miscommunications or misunderstandings between customer expectations. And there are times where for a variety of reasons there might be a pre-sale on a particular item, or a delay, or we did experience supply chain issues managing COVID and freight and some of the kind of domestic issues around delivery, and those created poor customer service experiences. And it wasn't our intent to do that. We were communicating with as much information as we had at the time to our customers, but sometimes, for a variety of reasons, you fall short on that. And, it stings, when you do, and it's our job to make it right. And it's to make it right for that individual. And we do that as best we can. but it's also to take that feedback and learn from it so that the next time we're in that situation, we can be more proactive with, hey, here's the expectations on when the product's going to get, when it's going to get to you, or, it could be related to fit or anything of that nature, particularly with an online brand where our retail stores have, it's primarily all online, so people can't try it on. But for the most part, once they do get the product, they love it, and they start to feel better about things. But it's a matter of, setting clear expectations and then communicating and making it right if something goes wrong. And we've learned from that at a variety of different points over the years.
For sure. One thing I kind of wanted to circle back to, because you talked about some of the design and the aesthetic of the Noble brand. If I'm being honest, like that's the one thing that has always stood out to me as, as a community member, as a fan, as an analyst, a quote unquote professional in this space, is the design and the aesthetic of Noble. And I'm curious, what are some of the inspirations of that for you guys as a brand? Because I know you have a design team and everything like that, but I feel like one of the beauties of being a creative is you can pull inspiration from so many different places. And I'm curious where some of those places are for Noble and being able to keep that aesthetic.
Yeah. So, I mean, interestingly enough, like we really don't look at what's going on in the athletic space or even like necessarily in the footwear space, because you can kind of get clouded with what's happening around you. And I'm not a designer, but I can put Michael's hat on for a moment. I've sat next to him long enough. But one example would be, how can you find inspiration in unexpected places? And with our knit runner, for example, the midsole on that shoe, it's a very complex geometric shape. And Michael was sitting sketching on his dining room table, and there was a vase on the table that had kind of like this checkered pattern to it. And I remember him saying, I think this could be kind of cool, because the upper of our shoe is typically very clean and simple. To add some depth and complexity to the midsole may add some visual interest. And he explored it, and ultimately that's where the midsole design came from for the knit runner. But it's an example of kind of how the team thinks, and they'll have inspiration from any numerous random places that blows my mind constantly. But you just got to tip your hat.
That's awesome. I absolutely love that. I don't know if he has an interior designer, if he does it all himself, but he
does it himself, I can assure you.
Okay, I was going to say, if not, he'd have to tip them pretty well for helping him design the next shoe. So I guess kind of last question or so, standing here now as the title sponsor for the CrossFit Games, what are you most excited for, looking forward, not just in year one, but year 2, year 3, and potentially to see what Noble and the CrossFit Games can become as this force of nature again, side by side?
Sure. So year 1, I think we're just excited to hopefully get the community back together in person, and hope to be one of the touch points that can galvanize the community, which has been through so much in so many different ways over the last few years, and just being a part of that. And I don't consider it leading that. It's just we're an equal participant as anybody else would be. And delivering product that we're stoked about. So like year 1, we're fired up about that. We want to deliver on that and tell amazing content stories. That's something that we really pride ourselves on and are getting some creative inspiration on now, which is we also host a fitness film festival, which we didn't host last year because of COVID, but we hope to this fall in New York, where we're able to showcase storytelling and content for all methodologies of fitness, and we want to be a participant in that, and tell some really badass, amazing stories about CrossFit, about other things, and also take that content and broadcast it outside of the CrossFit space. And we do think very intently about the way we create content such that it connects with CrossFit. And the intent is that it connects beyond CrossFit. And our goal is to also market CrossFit to non-CrossFitters in such a way that is very digestible, very approachable, to your point, very inclusive, and educational. And we believe that it has a positive impact on people's lives. And, if they were exposed to it, they would love it. And that's what you've experienced at one point. That's what I've experienced at one point. We want to deliver that product to other communities that are all around us in the world of training and fitness. And that's going to take some time, but that will be deployed over the life of this contract, which we hope is longer than 3 years, and we think it will be. Yeah. Through broadcast, through content, through documentaries, through putting our athletes as peers to Olympians or NFL players or world champions, because they are. And by doing that, we think we can create kind of an equilibrium between what CrossFit means to us and have it be something that other people can be just as excited about as we are.
That's awesome. I think I speak for a lot of people when they listen to this, that it's exciting to hear that. And I was going to say that when you listed all those superlatives for athletes, I think Tia fills like 4 of them. As like an Olympian, world champion, all of that stuff. So, well,
now she's just showing off at this point.
I know, seriously. Well, Todd, thank you so much for taking the time to join and chat with me today. Congrats again on the title sponsorship, and I think a lot of us in the community are really excited to see what can happen and what Noble can do in the next few years.
Thanks for having me. Hopefully, see you in person soon.